tub, everybody. We're back. Greg Elston, Chris Reed, Rafi Cantor. Two of the three are bobbing and weaving and dancing to a song that they hear in their mind. and, and we are together to talk Padres baseball. And guys, as of February 12th at 7:13 p.m., we actually have 2/3 of an outfield on this team.
A complete quad A outfield.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true. I guess so. We've got a quad A outfield complete, and we've got 2 major league outfielders on our team. I'm so excited. It's twice as many as we had this morning at like 7 a.m. So who knows what the next 12 hours will bring? A center fielder? God only knows.
I mean, we have like 4 or 5 days until the rest of the team technically reports. I mean, I've seen AJ do a lot more with a lot less, so I have some faith.
Yeah.
Me too. Actually, I felt irrationally excited this morning, and I mean irrationally excited with the signing of Jurickson Profar. We're going to talk about all of this. We're going to talk about options for the remaining spots on the team. We'll dig into some Padres news, and then in the second half of the show, really excited for this, Jason Martinez from Fangraphs is joining us, the Fangraphs roster resource. He's going to let us know about all of the cool doodads that fans can utilize on Fangraphs. And not for nothing, he's a Padres fan as well. And we'll talk to him about our club and what the machines say, or the people who work with the machines say at Fangraphs. We'll do that all as the show continues. First, some quick housekeeping. As always, the best way to support this, if you enjoy what Chris and Rafi and I do, if you like Padres Hot Tub, if you think it's great, we think you're great for supporting us. So on the most basic level, thank you for subscribing to the show on our free feed. If it just so happens, I guarantee you every time we do this, there's someone we're talking to that's listening to the show for the first time, that had it forwarded to a friend or found it on social media or something. So if you're one of those folks, please do us a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe to the Padres Hot Tub YouTube page. Doesn't cost you a dime. Click like on the video that you're watching right now. Doesn't cost you even a kilojoule of energy to go smash that like button. It's very low energy thing that you can do. You just scroll over, boop, it's over. And if you're listening on audio, if you're listening to the podcast feed, wherever you are, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeart, Spreaker, Odyssey app, wherever you are, go ahead and subscribe to the show. And that way you'll get all the rest of our shows as we head in to the season, as we head through spring training and into the season.
Yeah, I just want to, for folks who aren't aware, because I don't think we've given it the rundown in a minute, just in terms of like what you get for your $5 a month. First of all, you, if you're listening on an audio platform and you're getting like weird inserted ads in there, you don't get any of those. You get a completely ad-free version of the show. You can listen to it on any podcast player that you like. We'll get you a private RSS link that'll get that in there. So I listen to the show, when I'm like listening back to it on Apple Podcasts, no problem. My favorite thing, the crown jewel of our Patreon experience, is that you get access to our Discord, where you get all the other people who support the show, and you get to be without all the other bullshit that you'll get on any of the other Padres forums, on Reddit, on Twitter. If there's a MySpace Padres forum, the few, the proud, they're still going.
There are dozens of us.
Literally dozens. And you get to hop on and be a part of that. And of course you get to support the show, which we try and post up and bring you each week. So, you can participate in our private Patreon show experiences, group therapy, post-game shows, everything like that. Like, you're only going to get that on our Discord, and you're only going to get that by being a patron. So huge thank you to the hundreds of you who literally support us week in, week out, month in, month out through a long off season. And if you're curious, come join us.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. In my new gig, having to be on social media more every day than I had to before, I just can't tell you how much value there is in coming onto a platform day after day and not having to spend 5 to 7 minutes just blocking sex bots as the start of your experience. Like, oh, let's see notifications. Oh, sex robot, sex robot, sex robot, sex robot, sex robot. Block, 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 block. Elon, you did such a great job clearing the robots off your site. Just really outstanding work by you over there. So no sex robots that we are aware of on Discord. If there are any, they are extremely Padres savvy. I mean, we can't say for sure that Tevin McReynolds isn't a sex robot. He might just be malfunctioning. But yeah, it's a great experience. It's a very clean place in terms of your user interaction, right? Your UX, I think, the user experience. It's great. It's a place that I look forward to being every day, which I cannot say about Elon's place.
You could have picked so many other things.
It also should be noted that our Discord is the place to sign up for our fantasy baseball leagues. I look forward to getting my revenge upon Craig in the Keeper League and in the Ladder League this year.
I need to start voting on things. Monty is doing such an incredible job as commissioner of all of our leagues. He is killing it as a commissioner of all of our leagues. And almost every day I've seen something that we're supposed to vote on and I've been too busy. And I'm like, I abstain. I'll let somebody else decide. But it's really great. It's interactive. It's very, very player forward in terms of our fantasy leagues. It's well run. It's well adjudicated. And beyond that, Chris, for baseball card aficionados, we've got stuff going on too.
Yes, it should be noted that big patrons also get other things, tangible things like a T-shirt when you sign up, and huge patrons do. Huge patrons get a blanket, just like the ones behind us. But as part of our baseball card breaks that we've been doing exclusively for our Discord members, our big and huge patrons get added giveaways in addition to the cards that they're lucky enough to pull from the box that we're doing. Today was 2024 Top Series 1 release day. It's a holiday in the world of baseball cards, and we're going to be opening that in the next few weeks. So if you are interested in that, sign up, dip your toe in, you can do that. Or if you want to get some added goodies every time you participate in the break, you can upgrade to a big or a huge patron level.
Last housekeeping note, we will not have a February movie watch party. We are going to start getting back into group therapy. So make a note of it.
It'll be good for our souls.
It will be. It will be. And by February 21st, I believe we will have already lost to the Dodgers once? Or is that the next?
Jesus. Yeah, like I said, good day? For our souls.
Yeah. So February 21st will be our next group therapy. We do all of our group therapy podcasts live on our Discord stage. It is a place where folks can come, gather, and be a part of the show, participate, step up, be a caller on the show as well. So that's something that when we get into the regular season, we do that every single week. And we have a call-in show. We have a live interactive show toward the end of every single week. So something to enjoy, something to be a part of. I think it's a lot better on those shows to be a part of it and to be in there listening live, getting a chance to jump up, hold up your hand, and be a part of it. So check that out. Next group therapy will be February 21st. That's a Wednesday evening. Make a note of it. Okay. In the news. In the news. No GNUs is good GNUs with Gary GNU. Padres, what, you never watched the big blue marble? What was that called? The Big Blue Marble, I think it was. It's when I was growing up as a kid. The Great Space Coaster. That's what it is.
Did it come on before or after Dick Cavett?
It was before, probably. It was definitely on PBS, so it definitely preceded Dick Cavett.
Okay.
The Great Space Coaster, and it had a news segment with Gary GNU. No GNUs is good GNUs with Gary GNU. Please enjoy this break.
7 people who are still listening
from my childhood
to this podcast.
Please enjoy this break from my childhood. Yeah, indeed. Okay. So the Padres spring training began on Sunday. Pitchers and catchers reporting, and several position players by Monday, February 12th. Manny Machado, Ha-Seong Kim in the house. Soon Jurickson Profar. Jake Cronenworth in the house. So good to see. Seems like esprit de corps is high. Joe Musgrove was talking about he's been doing like mini camps for pitchers and catchers for a month now. So I do appreciate, boys, that the Padres are taking seriously the fact that their camp will end on March 13th, 2 to 3 weeks before everybody else.
You love to see the guys doing things that aren't mandatory, right? You love to see them taking initiative and realizing that last year, their unmet expectations were profound, and needing to do something differently going into this year, knowing that Mike Schilt had a limited amount of time to get the fundamentals in, to get the program started. I do miss the good mornings, but it was just awesome to see the social media teams putting out the mitts popping, the balls throwing. It's the grass is green again.
Craig, I know you mentioned you woke up irrationally excited this morning. I have to say I was at first kind of a little bit tepid, mostly because some new projections came out from Fangraphs, of which Jason Martinez works, and Zips came out with their projections for next year's standings, and the Padres were back into a 4th place projection according to Zips, which is like, hey, that's the team I know and love. That's the team I grew up rooting for. There was a familiar feeling to that, but I will say on the flip side, this is, in my opinion, a much better place for us to be in than being projected to outpace the Dodgers like we were last year. I think time and time again over the last several years, we've known that I don't know if it's that the team doesn't handle expectations well or we've just gotten unlucky in those situations, but I think this place where the team has something to prove is a much more desirable position for me than being in a place where, we've won yet another offseason and all the expectations on us, and it's kind of only downhill from there.
Well, I think we heard some interesting things this past week. I'll even jump it in the line here. Joe Musgrove interview yesterday, first day of spring training camp, and I think he was pretty explicit about talking about the club's need to define its values in spring training and going further to say that last year it simply didn't happen. And and what I mean by defining values, what Joe means by defining values is saying, what kind of team are we? What do we stand for? What is our goal this year? What are our intentions? What's the intentionality that we're bringing to this season? It really sounds like, and you kind of understand it, but it sounds like that was not spoken last spring, that it was just kind of understood. There's $260 million of ball players inside this locker room. We're expected to win. We went out of FanFest. We said everyone needs to be scared of us, blah, 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 blah. Now we get together for a day. Then we all break off to our various, World Baseball Classic camps and we spread out. And it's just assumed. It doesn't need to be discussed. It's assumed that we're great and that we're committed and that we're locked in for the season. And it turns out they weren't any of those things. They weren't great. They weren't committed. They weren't locked in for the season. They didn't lock in until there were 16 games left in a season that they were hopelessly out of. So to hear that from Joe at the beginning of the year, I thought it was really telling in terms of both where they are now and where they were a year ago.
Yeah, the explicitness of it, the saying out loud that basically there were all these expectations, they got unmet, they found themselves with the backs to the wall, as he put it, and then there wasn't accountability when those those shortcomings revealed themselves. I thought part of his interview that was really interesting was that he talked about Peter Seidler being present in the first half of the season and then not being around the second half of the season, and the guys, being able to speculate what could be going on with him, but not knowing. And that guy was the soul of the franchise. We're going to see his initials on the jersey this year. Not saying that reflects any way on how the team performed last year, because they struggled early on when he was around. But I did think it spoke to not just confusion in the values of the club or the objectives of the club, but also just how it was talking while it was talking from the up down all of last season. It seems like there was a lot of confusion in very real life parts of how the team went, and then also the baseball.
What was your reaction, Rafi, to what you heard from Joe?
Well, I mean, like I've been off of Instagram for several months, so I haven't been able to partake in what was one of my favorite things, which was checking the Instagram stories of Padres players, and it's one thing that I have seen through our Discord. Shout out, because I don't have the app anymore. Is the get-togethers that the pitchers and catchers have been having that Joe has been leading? You know, where they went on like a I don't know if it was like a hornblower or cruise or something like that.
No,
just
sir. That was a sport fishing boat. That was the, oh gosh, which one was it? It was one of our San Diego's world's largest live bait sport fishing fleet. It was not a yacht. It was not a cruise. Joe Musgrove rented the boys a fishing boat.
Nice.
What incredible.
Yeah.
And they had like a great chef that was on board, like doing stuff. And then they were doing something that I did as a kid. They were doing like beach bonfires and PB. Like, which was like,
you hired companies to build out giant pits for you?
okay, they're doing it at a different level, but spiritually, it's the same thing. I did, yeah. If you guys want to go on Joe Musgrove's Instagram, you can see they have like a, like those like seating pits that they have in like 60s living rooms.
Like an amphitheater.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like completely dug out. Anyway, that's the side of baseball where I can't help but be romantic about it. And I like the idea, it makes me feel like I'm watching an 80s movie when I'm just seeing the guys like gelling and clicking together. And so that part of it heartens me. And yeah, I'll just go back to again, like, I just think not having those same expectations is going to do wonders for this club.
I have to ask a follow-up. What's up with Instagram and Rafi? I've heard people banning Twitter, but IG?
Why am I not on Instagram?
Yeah.
Oh, it was just a cacophony of bullshit, and I just decided that I was gonna take a step back, and I have to honestly say I'm like so much happier. So I recommend it to anyone who. It's just kind of amazing the amount of times where you don't even like the week after I had deleted it, the amount of times I picked up my phone and went to click and it wasn't there.
Yeah,
I was like, oh yeah, it is a problem. You know what I mean? So that's the story with that.
Okay, I get that. I mean, I did that a year and a half ago with Twitter, and I felt that I have never interacted with Instagram at the point where I would consider it a negative interaction. Usually, I just like put up pictures of my dog or food or.
I'm a little too into the sandwiches of history account and spending too much time there. That's for sure.
Fair, and yeah, we learned things from stories. Like, for example, this morning. We learned that Jurickson Profar would be a San Diego Padre hours before even a professional baseball writer put out a story. Jurickson had put out a very lovely reel on Instagram with like highlight after highlight, homer, diving catch, throw out a guy at second base, another homer, a double down the line. Oh, he's in a City Connect. He's in a pinstripe. He's in a road pinstripe. Like, it was beautiful. And as he was like circling third and heading home and praising Jesus, it said, job not done. And I was like, Jurickson Profar, you are a San Diego Padre, baby. And then the deal came out, guys. How about it? 1 year, 1 million, one Adam Engel. All we had to pay was one Engel.
Yep.
To get a full season of Profar. You got 5 at-bats of Engel for $1 million last year. You're going to get a full season of Profar for $1 million plus some patsy incentives that could push it to 2.5. I love this deal for the San Diego Padres.
Love's a strong word, I think.
Well, it had the dot. It had the ellipse and the question mark.
It had a question mark.
You heard that, right? Love.
Yeah. I heard that a little bit. There was a little like I'm Ron Burgundy question mark to it. But the thing that I'll say about Jurickson, by the way, fired Scott Boras.
Yes!
And is now has the same agent at MVP Sports Group that Manny and I believe Fernando also same agent.
Correct.
Which I gotta point out is like a that is what ball players and athletes who are friends with each other do. That is a surefire indicator that those guys are bros.
Yeah, and I mean, also, again, remember last year, Boras was in his ear, like Draymond Green whispering on Kevin Durant, lifting up his jersey, like opt out of your deal. We're going to get you a big deal. And then he signed for basically the same amount of money to go play for the Rockies, was terrible and miserable there, only to get DFA'd and then end up coming and playing for us for 49 plate appearances last season. So I get like why he was probably pissed that like he opted out of like just being in San Diego last year and like having the vibes and everything like that. And the vibes are, I think, what's clearly the best part of this deal. It's basically no money for a team that clearly isn't trying to spend it. And Mike Schultz said it himself when asked by reporters. He's a glue guy. That's the exact phrase. And I love that in terms of looking at Jurickson. He is there to be glue, the 26th man, ideally. But right now he's maybe like 7th,
like 17th, at least the 17th, man.
Yeah,
like, somewhere
like
in there, yeah.
But I think there's at least upside here. We can be happy.
It's hard for me to be really pumped because I think about how I felt about Jurickson Profar being the opening day starter in left field back in 2022, which was not great. Not thrilled. Kind of like he's going to be the guy he is. And then he started throwing a disproportionate amount of runners out. And you're like, oh, that's funny. He always brings something weird and fun to it. But for $1 million, as a 26, 25 guy on the roster, you can't really go wrong. And I kind of think about it as in how these MLB teams have a draft number. And if you sign a guy for under slot in the upper rounds, that means you can take a reach on somebody that you might not have had a chance for later, convince them to sign for a little bit more money, and then you wind up, with better players on the back end. And that's what I kind of get excited by this. By filling that roster spot for $1 million, maybe that gives them a little bit more room to play with as they advance closer and closer to the CBT threshold. That's kind of my silver lining of it. Is he only costs $1 million, $1.5 million with incentives. So if you plan on starting him, you leave that room on the CBT. You don't go get Adam Frazier or Jake Marisnick. You leave that there. But maybe that allows you to take a stab at somebody who you thought was out of your budget if you signed, Duvall for $7 million or Tommy Pham for $8 million.
That's exactly right, Chris. I said this on Annie and Elston this morning, but I'll say it here as well. This is the free spot on the bingo board for the San Diego Padres. This is a major league player who is playing essentially for free because you could call up a rookie from single A to start in left field and they would make 3/4 of what Jurickson Profar makes this season. So $1 million for Jurickson Profar, who is best friends with Ha-Sung Kim, best friends with Fernando Tatis Jr., has an incredible relationship with Manny Machado, is going to hit 9th on this team. Like, pencil him in.
Yeah.
He is going to hit 9th for this team the whole year. The last time he was a full-time left fielder for the Padres, he was good defensively. Like, he was legitimately good defensively. And when you look at his numbers, Rafe, like throughout his career, in San Diego, he's maintained a walk rate of around 10 to 11% in the seasons that he's played here. So he is a guy that you can pencil in 9th. He might hit 227. He might hit 243. He might hit 230. None of those are Trent Grisham's 182 out of the 9 spot, but he's going to walk at a similar rate to Trent Grisham. He is going to put pressure on opposing pitchers at a similar rate to Trent Grisham. He'll generate as many 7-pitch at-bats as Trent Grisham did this year. Throw it down the middle, he's going to pop it up to the second baseman. We know that. It's Jurickson Profar. But I really like a guy who is an automatic sync with like half of the guys in the clubhouse and is a tough at bat in the 9 spot that's going to punish opposing pitchers who are nibbling around the zone. And if he fails, this is the critical part. If Jurickson Profar starts 3 for 48 with 32 strikeouts and is a complete cipher, the Padres can cut him. They can cut his ass. Get out of here and bring up the guy in Double or Triple A who has had the time to season and has had the time to build up the experience and the confidence to be able to step up to the major leagues. This is a placeholder. It is an immaculate placeholder for the San Diego Padres.
Yeah, okay, listen. He is a switch hitter, which is great. Like you said, career walk rate around 10%, great. Career strikeout rate, in the 16% range, which is not bad at all on the scale of things. So that's good. He has some pretty weak contact over the course of his career, which is why someone who's not walking in Soto levels or striking out at an insanely high, like Tatis level, let's say, is not putting up insane numbers, is because when the ball goes in play, he's not getting the best results. Like you said, he's an infield fly machine, I think, at like historic levels. And I do just want to say, because I can hear lots of people in my ear right now, he posted the 7th worst season last year since the year 2000. Like the 7th worst last season.
Is that good?
That's really bad. And he's projected to be replacement level, which we would expect after such a a rotten season. And so I just want to have like the appropriate level of, as long as he's there, like we have said a few times already, to be the 26th man. I love this. As if he's expected to be anything but, I hate this because it's a sign of like really like where the team sees itself and its ambitions lie.
Well, thank you so much for not tailoring the stat of he was the worst blankety blank player and not using World War II as your example, as we have heard.
Shout out HJ. Big shout out to HJ.
In the Discord today, people were panicking, saying that if he has over 350 at bats, the Padres season is doomed. And I just want to assert that's not the case. If the Padres season is hinging on the success of Jurickson Profar, it's already doomed. It's exactly like Craig said. If he's in the 9th spot all year long, you have a vet in that spot making pitchers work. I remember the trademark Jurickson Profar 7-pitch at bat, and it's a lot better than the Trent Grisham 3 pitches bat. And he's probably going to put up near the same amount of home runs, maybe 70, 80% as much, giving you that switch hitter ability to at least make pitchers throw different pitches throughout the lineup. Whereas if they went out and got, Duvall or Soler, that you wouldn't have that. You might get a little bit better production, but you wouldn't have that little intangible that can set the stage for Tatis at the top of the lineup or Ha-Seong Kim at the top of the lineup.
Yeah,
so
he's a second leadoff hitter.
Yeah, and a worse one. But it's not gonna be like 2022 before they made the trade for Soto, where Profar did lead off. That's not going to be the case with this team. So we know who Jurickson Profar is. I'm happy that we'll see him smiling, 1 out of every 4 of his at-bats.
He is 1 year removed from a 2.6 F-WAR season playing full-time for the San Diego Padres. He's 1 year removed from that. He's 31 years old. Now, did last year he put up a -2 F-WAR season? Why, yes, he did. Why, indeed, he did. However, can I tell you about vibes and the fact that he was disconnected from his best pals when he was in lonely, snowy Colorado, which was cold and forbidding and not fun? Like,
I want to see the Fangraphs, X vibes projection. X vibes are going to be huge.
X vibes are what Jurickson is all about. Look, I am not here to tell you that he's going to be a good player for the Padres. If he is a good player for the Padres in 2024, holy cow, what a steal. $1 million. Again, I cannot possibly repeat this enough. We paid Adam Engel $1 million to get like 6 at-bats last year. 6 at-bats. We paid Nelson Cruz $1 million to like be decent for 3 weeks and then got awful and then we got rid of him. Jurickson Profar is going to be better than either of those guys. Like, I can almost guarantee you Jurickson Profar is going to be better than either of those guys. But here's the single most important thing. Because Jurickson Profar will be the Padres starting opening day left fielder in Korea, Jackson Merrill won't be. And because Jurickson Profar is the opening day starting left fielder for the Padres in Korea, Jacob Marcy won't be. And Graham Pauley won't be. And this team was in trouble if those guys are either on the major league bench or, God forbid, in the major league starting lineup, coming out of high A ball with like a cup of coffee in double A and getting pushed into the big leagues. We heard this throughout the winter. And frankly, AJ and Schulte even said stuff about this a week ago in terms of, well, they might play. Profar's here. Profar's going to win, quote unquote, I'm air quoting for our YouTube. He's going to win the left field job. All right. And they're going to say, Paulie and Marcy did great, but Profar won it away in left field. And that's going to mean that those dudes can do what they need to do, which is go to double A, get every day at bats, season, prepare. And at the point where Profar is cooked and ready to be tossed out into the wilderness, one of these kids will be ready to come up.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
No,
There's
don't
the
really drop the mic. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah.
Oh, my sound
Dropping the
text
mic
just
on
cried.
Jurickson Profar starting left fielder is a bold move.
Yeah.
It's very much like a shrug.
Should I just set it down gently?
Yeah.
That was just for fun. That was for funsies. Okay, so let me ask you guys, because we do a daily deep dive on Annie and Elston. We try and do an 11 a.m. like thought segment on the Padres, and our thought segment this morning was, okay, well, now what? Right? So now we've filled the free spot on the bingo board. We have received a major league baseball player for the equivalent of nothing in Jurickson Profar. $1 million for Jurickson Profar. So now what? I feel like the board is suddenly wide open. Now, having just spent $1 million on a starting player, we could sign a fourth starter for $10 to $12 million and still be under the CBT. And I think we're going to trade for a center fielder, guys. I feel like now, like seeing Profar signed for what he did made me go, okay, the floor is wide open to spend prospect surplus value to go get a legitimate, controllable center fielder for years.
I agree. Like Cedric Mullins has 2 years left on him, and he's going to make something like $7 million this year. I don't think they necessarily got the capital for that or are going to spend it, but it's a possibility. Like you say, the options become numerous. Michael Lorenzen, another guy that I, coveted last year at the trade deadline. They went out and got Rich Hill when Lorenzen was about as expensive, maybe a little more expensive, but he's an arm who can give you 125 innings. So yeah, I that's it gets me more excited for the next 4 days between the coming of everybody else and the weekend.
This signing makes me want to trade for a center fielder less. It to me,
really?
It makes me want to just buy a year of Michael A. Taylor, Adam Duvall. Like, just like you're saying, you just reallocate those funds elsewhere. Like, there was a rumor that like got some steam or something that Jarren Duran from the Red Sox was potentially there was like
expensive.
A trade, and that's the thing. Like, and when when I hear the word controllable, I hear the word expensive, and I think like if anything, like this, the way that this team has operated this entire offseason has told us that their plan is to remain flexible in the years to come in 2025 and 2026, and you don't do that by trading away prospect capital for even a guy who, let's say, only has a couple years of service time. If they're going to be ARB eligible next year, they're going to start becoming more expensive. And so I just think it runs counter to what we've seen. And just, I thought that the underslot overslot analogy that was made earlier was fantastic. It's like, Duvall and Taylor, they haven't signed yet. Their prices are going to be down from what they were a month ago. Like, just take the 2, 3, 4, whatever you were saying, $1 million that you saved signing Profar to be the glue guy, and spend it on someone who can actually play center field and isn't going to cost you a lot. And then, if you're going to use that trade capital, I'd much rather use that on pitching because there's just more of it. Like, like guys who we would be interested in trading for in center field, like those guys are expensive. those guys are really expensive. And
But
so
there are clubs that are looking to get rid of guys that are in their second year of ARB. You know, that's why I bring up the Orioles. It's hard to say what they're going to do because they have new ownership and, you know, they're kind of going crazy over there. But like there are clubs out there that don't want to spend on the second and third year of ARB.
But they just bought Corbin Burns from the
I know,
Brewers.
that's what I mean.
They're not going to be selling anyone, in my opinion. And I think the last thing ownership is going to do is like, hey, like, you know, that stalwart of like the last few years, like we're sending him packing. Like I think like if anything, Duran is actually someone that like I was like, okay, I could see that trade happening, but I just don't like it for the team. I think that like it just is something where I don't think that it's in the team's plans. And so that's number one. And number two, I don't think it's in the team's interest. And that's, I mean, obviously that's my opinion, but I just think our prospect capital, if we're going to spend it, could be spent elsewhere.
All right. I know the trade simulator is a quick and dirty
It's not
thing.
what it's called.
What is it called? Baseball trade values.
It's called the fuckity fuck website, Craig.
Okay, the fuckity fuck. I didn't know we had to use technical terms here. I'm sorry. I was trying to be a layman. Okay, so in the fuckity fuck, Jarren Duran is listed as a 34 surplus value. So by comparison, Drew Thorpe is an 18.5 future value. Robbie Snelling is a 25.7 future value. I'll just say it very simply. I think one of those types of guys, Snelling, Thorpe, Iriarte, etc., Lesko, I think one of those guys and one other guy gets you Duran from Zavala and a pitcher.
And Boston is like really reoriented its entire development apparatus around pitching with their new GM. So like they have a really good look at Drew Thorpe the last 3-4 years as he's been in the Yankee system. I think you're right, Craig.
I guess it's just because I've been talking about this, Rafi. I'd love you to talk me off a cliff on this. I think this is the right kind of move for the Padres to make. We've got a lot of maybe pitchers in our system. And the thing about maybe pitchers is they are super valuable until the moment they come up and serve up 7 homers in 18 innings. And then they are much less valuable. And at this moment, this Schrodinger's cat moment for so many of these pitchers where they might be great, they might be shit. We don't know. Like flipping one of them to get a controllable left-handed center field qualified type player, I feel like that's a move that the Padres can afford to make right now.
I don't disagree with you on the idea of like, hey, like we can trade pitching because there's no such thing as a pitching prospect, which I agree with you on. Like these guys can turn into, pancakes. That's a weird. I don't know why I chose that word. They can turn into something that is not a pitcher very easily. I just think that like it's natural to underrate how expensive in prospect capital other teams' asking prices are. Like, because we value we value Robbie Snelling a lot. We value Drew Thorpe. Like, we value Dylan Lesko a lot because, like, they're our hope. Like, and so it's like, wouldn't you like our hope for your guy who we have no emotional attachment to? And they're like, this is just some pitching prospect who might turn into pancakes, So, like, I think that, like, in theory, I don't mind the idea of Jarren Duran being on the Padres. I just think that like we as fans undervalue what that's actually going to cost us. And that's where my skepticism comes from.
I think he would cost us Drew Thorpe, Jacob Marcy, and another one of our 10 to 20, prospects. And I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I would too. To be honest, I would too. Because
I think you guys are bored and you want some stimulus. You want some juice. And like that's what this is.
I got Instagram, bro. I'm good.
I'm telling you, the second that the Jeff Passan tweet comes across, there's this feeling that's gonna hit your stomach that's like, oh my God, did we give up too much? Like it's just the true. Action is the juice, is where you guys are at right now. And I just like the second that we start to hear some gloves pop from the press box, which we're kind of already starting to do from pitchers and catchers, like I think we're going to start to feel like a little bit better about this. We're still in the soft transition from off season to spring training. I do think a move is going to happen. Again, it's like when it comes to where we spend our resources, like I would just rather fill the hole while we wait for the talent prospect capital to rise in the system this year.
I would agree if there were a center fielder, like if James Wood was still down there, I would be right there with you. It's just he's not.
Well, okay, so let me just ask you: are we better off signing Raimel Tapia to play center field, or signing Tommy Pham to play right field?
What is happening, right? Oh, I see.
And pushing Toddy into center. Players like that are not going to cost you any prospect capital, and probably won't cost you more than $5 or $6 million in terms of actual salary. But none of it puts you in a we don't have a center fielder situation, or Toddy is our center fielder, and how do we feel about that? As opposed to, I think the quality young center fielders that you could get, it's going to require making a move, a trade.
Sure. I mean, I've been a fan of moving Tatis to center field since last year, but he didn't play center field when he was playing in the Dominican, which would have been the perfect kind of low stakes opportunity to get him reps out there. He wasn't doing that. He said publicly he's going to be a right fielder. So it's kind of like just a thought experiment at that point.
He could totally do it, but does he want to?
Yeah. And also like is now February 12th when we're playing real games in like a month, like the time to just, he's a center fielder now. I think he could do it, by the way. He did it with right field, like, and won a platinum glove, for Christ's sake. But like, I just it's just counter to what we've been seeing from the team. I don't know. I think I just disagree, and like maybe I'm prospect hugging, but like it just seems like that. I don't think Jarren Duran solves the team's issues in the future, and putting that big of a prospect dent in our system might kneecap us when we've committed to a direction. That's all I'm saying as the counterweight.
That's totally cool. And I can completely like intellectually follow and buy in to that argument. And I can also buy into a lot of projections that put us at 79 and 83 or 80 and 82 this year. And I don't think we win more than 79 or 80 games with Jose Azocar as our full-time center fielder. I believe this team is making moves. I really believe that this team is going to make moves. I have to think that somewhere in that Padres front office, the discussion has been had. By the way, not for nothing, guys, we have raised ticket prices significantly, not just 1 year, but 2 years in a row. We are cutting payroll while we're raising ticket prices. We cannot afford as a franchise to roll out to 80 and 82 and fourth place and expect to have the base that we have financially for 2025 and beyond. We all agree. I think we all agree. This is this weird gap year where the Padres need to break the cycle without breaking the window. And I just believe that the franchise's system can afford one trade. I don't know that they can afford a flurry of trades, but I think they can afford one trade that brings something positive to this team right now, as opposed to punt it all, and hope that Marcy is an ace outfielder in 2026.
Yeah, right. I'm with you, dude. I think, and it's got from the holes on the team right now: center field, DH, starting pitcher 4. However you upgrade that, two of those in free agency, do it. And then wherever your best value in the trade market is, then you do that too. I've kind of thought it would be a center fielder. I thought it would be an outfielder, but at this point in free agency, I don't know where the market is. We got Jurickson for $1 million. They've got a little bit of free money to play with.
They do. Last thing, and we'll get to Jason Martinez. Obviously, right. Fourth starter, DH, center fielder. We still have 3 significant holes. If they fill fourth starter with some of the guys that are already here, I'm not going to scream. If they fill center field and DH with the guys that are already here, I might scream. So, hoping for some things coming forward. Last thing I'll say, and then we'll get to our guest. Yuki Matsui is fucking cool.
Yeah, that was rad.
I am strongly considering buying a Yuki Matsui #1 jersey this year. For him to have memorized and committed to an almost 2-minute English and Spanish introductory statement to Padres fans and to the baseball world, I am in love. Like, I love this kid, and I am so excited. And when he said, I hope you give my wife and I like a warm welcome to San Diego, I'm like, where can we send you gift cards and flowers and recommendations for burritos and like,
yeah, let's go to Bottle Rocket, else. Bro.
Right. Bottle Rocket gift card, whatever it takes. Yuki Matsui, I am a fan. I'm fired up.
It just makes me excited that the Padres keep looking to the West or the Far East, whichever term you want to use. They look to Asia as a place to scout and find people that are going to be home on the Padres. And I hope that pattern continues.
Yeah, I just got to say, like, the bravery that it takes to get up in front of the press in your first, real time talking to them in not your native language, not your native languages, and doing an absolutely outstanding job. And just one of the things that he said was that, like, I will give my all. Like, I will do everything to try my best and make you guys proud. Yeah, like you said, Greg, it was just cool. It was just really, really cool.
He wants us to have joy from his pitches.
Josh Hader never said that.
Josh Hader never said that. Ever. He never said, I want to bring you joy with my pitches. He said, hey, by the way, saves are important. Turns out saves matter. I'll pitch for you 2 days. That's it. Yeah, I'm psyched. Yuki Matsui is cool. And now I really hope he's good. Because if he's good and cool, we are set. That's Ha-Sung Kim territory. When you're good and you're cool, I want your jersey. I want to chant your name. I want to get excited. I want to celebrate your lifestyle. Like, I am fired up for Yuki Matsui. Couldn't do better. Now, serve up a homer to a Colorado dude. My opinion, may falter. Serve up a bases loaded double to J.D. Davis for the Giants to win. I'll be a little more upset. You got to bring us joy with your pitches. But listen, first impressions matter. My first impression of Yuki Matsui is A++. All right, let's take a break. Jason R. Martinez with Fangraphs is on the other side here on Padres Hot Tub. All right, from 3, we have gone to 4. Very excited as Chris and Rafi and I are thrilled to welcome into the show from Fangraphs, Jason R. Martinez, making his debut on Padres Hot Tub. Jason, Craig here with Rafi, with Chris. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. Happy Jurickson Profar Day to those who celebrate. I know that's the most obvious move that anybody could have predicted, and yet that's probably why I thought it wasn't going to happen. It's just like that makes too much sense. It's not going to happen, and of course, it just like we all thought, it just was too great of a fit, right?
Yeah, just like a blue moon every once in a while, AJ Preller will actually telegraph a move and then make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Every once in a while. Well, let's start off just on a baseline, Jason. Let everybody know, like, the cool jobs you do, what you do for Fangraphs, kind of what brings you here.
Well, it's I think could be a long story to kind of get into what I do, and
bring
if it. If I just really focus on the Padre
We're not going to be focused.
Oh, okay, all right. But sometimes I ramble, man, and sometimes I start going, and it's like I go in all kinds of directions. But I think I can just get to the point pretty quick if I just focus like Tony Gwynn, Padres, and I show you like boom, boom, boom. This is how I got here, and if I say like I've been a Padres fan and a baseball fan since I was a little kid, right? Like you probably have an idea of what that looks like. I know a lot of kids who love baseball. but it's kind of like not like that. It's not. It's another thing. It's not that thing. It's another thing. And if you can imagine, like like going through box scores, standings, leaderboards, and all that stuff. Reading the newspaper. Back when I was a little kid, it wasn't even the San Diego Union Tribune yet. It was the Union in the morning. It was Evening Tribune in the afternoon. And so, I was going through that stuff at 5 years old, and I always since this is the Padres podcast, and you're not going to be able to see this, but this is something that I did before the 1982 season. So this is a scrapbook, and it starts falling apart, and like the cover's gone and everything. But this is like a picture of the just the season preview of this is just kind of like the title picture. And then if you go through it, there's like, I start putting in like schedules and just pictures. This is like, and so this is all like season preview stuff, right? And you got a bunch of cool pictures, and you got like, okay, the 82 Padres are mad as, and then you got like, that's, the Friar guys holding that sign that blocks out the word. You got Rupert there, you got Broderick Perkins, you got all this, Dick Williams is the manager. And anyways, you can't see it really, but I go from the beginning of the season all the way through the end of the season. And I remember this vividly, like, because this is what I think about. Like I was going to games before that. My parents were taking me, to watch Randy Jones and Ozzie Smith and those guys. I don't remember that, but I remember this. And the reason I remember is because I was looking through standings and understanding, like, okay, this is what this means. And this is the year the Braves were like 13-0, and the Padres were like really good, but it was like, we can't catch this other team. They don't lose. And the Padres were like 9-3 or 9-4. And I remember going through it like that. So I can point to that and say, that's when I was a baseball fan, and that's crazy, but that was my thing. And so anyways, it, as you can imagine, that's always been like one of my favorite things. Padres, it's baseball, it's going through statistics and things like that, right? So anyways, let's just, fast forward. I go through high school, and of course, I'm just a guy who loves sports. I don't really care about anything else. Get through high school, it's like I wasn't that good. Nobody cared, about how good of a baseball player I was. What am I going to do with my life? I don't know. I don't know anything. I like baseball. And the thing that I would think about, so if you imagine, like 82 is when Tony Gwynn came up. So obviously that's my favorite player. By the time I was 19 or 20 and I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life, it's like the thing I kept thinking about is, okay, work hard and good things will happen. That's what Tony Gwynn's dad told him, right? So, duh, right? Like, I guess that's a very simple thing, but what does that mean? I don't really know what that means, because it's just so simple until I really started to enjoy other things, and like, okay, I want to be good at this thing. I want to learn about this thing. I need to put in once I realize you put in a bunch of effort and you just go, and you go, okay, oh, working hard, I get it. And the thing I realize is, work hard and good things will happen. Don't worry so much about the outcome. Just have fun with it.
Baseball mindset, man.
Yeah, it's like, and maybe whether it's you're shooting for these goals that are just, they're not reachable, but look, you just go for it, and whatever happens, it's like, put in the work, something good came out of it, right? And I think in my 20s, I had kind of done that with a few things, and had reached the end point with that, and said, like, it worked. It was like, this is over, and I'm happy to move on from it. But now this is something that I could kind of put on, just my resume as a human being, is that I did this thing, and kind of people kind of know me for this thing, right? So anyways, moving on to now my 30s, I had a full-time job, little kids, and I was kind of focused on that stuff, kind of missing, maybe a little bit of a creative outlet, and at the same time, people in my work were starting to lose their jobs, and I was like, I'm next. What can I do? There's maybe I could do something on the internet, like MLB Trade Rumors was something that had just started blowing up at the time, and I was like, I totally get this thing that he's doing. It's like, because it's really hard to follow everything that's going on, and so like, oh, that makes perfect sense to bring it all into one place and organize it, right? And maybe we need something else that kind of goes along with this, as far as, whenever something happens in baseball, if you're a baseball writer, you have a big audience, a lot of people who don't want to get into the weeds on a lot of stuff. Just like, so they're really focused on, like, just get to the point, don't go too deep into it. And I was always like, there's so much more, go more. And then, of course, there were starting to be bigger blogs that were doing really long form stuff, and it's like, I don't want to read all that. So let me just show you. Can I, and I had been writing out lineups my entire life. Whenever there was a trade happening, or when we got to the off season, there's so many disappointing seasons as a Padres fan. It's just like, you get to the end of the season and you're like, all right, let's look to next season. Who do we got? What are we going to do in the off season? And of course, these are the days where you're not going to sign any of the big guys, but you're like, okay, what's Towers going to pull off? He's going to make some trade, and maybe he's going to get some guys that are going to turn out to be pretty good. Anyways, I have this idea, and to kind of go back to that, work hard and good things will happen, right? And I think at the same time, I'm kind of thinking, this Tony Gwynn guy, yeah, he worked really hard, but he's also like, he's a guy who got drafted in 2 different sports. He's like an amazing athlete. He's an amazing basketball player, and that hand-eye coordination was probably like elite level, something that he's born with. And I go, okay, yeah, of course he worked hard to make himself a Hall of Famer, but I see what, like I see what you have to do to get to that level. So what's my thing? What's my skill, right? It's like Napoleon Dynamite. What's his buddy and his friend, like Pedro? What are my skills? I don't know. and I'm like, well, baseball's my thing, right? Everybody kind of knows that I like baseball. They ask me questions. I always remember a lot of stuff. Is that like skill? I don't know if that's a skill. I have a good memory, I guess, but I know this is something that I've been doing since I was a little kid. It's not like something I just said, okay, hey, I'm going to learn to play the guitar, and I'm going to just play all day long until I'm good. And I'm going to have, I'm not the person that was playing since I was 5 years old. And I go, well, this is the thing I've been doing since I was 5 years old. Maybe this is my thing. So it's like taking that same concept of going, but what is my thing? And what can I do that's going to make me stand out for everybody else? And I said, let me try to do it with this. And so I created this concept of this website, and it was like, I just want, when something happens, or if we get a rumor, if you get a signing, a trade, let me see what that looks like on paper. There's a lot of different lineups, obviously, that could happen, but I want to look at something. And it worked out. It was a good idea for people who play fantasy baseball, media, which is like something I wasn't thinking about. But I can listen to MLB Network Radio, any other shows, and I'm like, yeah, they have my website open, and they're just basically, this happened. They pull up the roster, and then they're just going down the lineup, and I'm gonna go, okay, I think I think it works out great, and for that reason, like, you just
was
want
like
something in
roster
front of you.
resource just available as a website, and you were like,
so it was originally, it was like, it was, well, these are like depth charts, kind of, not really a depth chart, but it was called MLBdepthcharts.com. And then it was kind of, it was catching on, but it wasn't doing a lot after a few years. And then I was like, I should add more sports. So we added basketball, added football, and changed the name to Roster Resource, and that was available. So that was like, I don't know, 10 years ago. And then when Fangraphs bought the site in 2019, they only do baseball, so that's why Roster Resource is only baseball. But it was called that because it was supposed to be for a lot of sports. And I miss doing that a bit, but yeah, easier just to focus on one here.
yeah, you can join a fantasy league if you want to scratch that itch, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's and that's actually like, I don't even play fantasy baseball. I don't have time. I'm like, this
No,
is
I
totally
can
a thing that it's like I focused on getting this done and not focused on, I need to set my lineup and all that stuff. But it is like, it's something that's a lot of work. And it was, part of the whole idea was, look, I'm going to put a lot of work in this. I'm going to put a lot of effort. I'm going to try to do something great that is going to stand out. It's like, well, I don't want to burn out. And I'm pretty sure this is a thing that I'm not ever going to get burned out on. So, so it worked out. It worked out good. So I've been doing this for 15 years now.
And Jason, because I think a lot of our interview is going to be focused on your role at Fangraphs and kind of talking more about that side of things, especially as we look towards free agency and how the Padres might be able to fill out the rest of their roster and everything like that. But I was listening to an interview you did with Ben Clemens last year, talking about this, and one of the jobs that you mentioned that you also had was being a stringer, MLB stringer. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, and like I said,
and what is that for people who don't know?
So it took a while to make any money doing this, but the cool thing is that, and I didn't mention this before. I started this because I thought I was going to lose my job, and then I lost my job like a year later, which is like, all right, now I got to do this, right? Okay, I don't have any excuse, but I need to make some money. Let me look around. I had heard about this job opening, and it's called Stringer. It's basically, if you were to look on the Game Day app, you see the play-by-play, you see the box score, all that stuff. So somebody's entering that from the press box. So that's one of my jobs. I got that one, and that's a thing where it's like, how do you even qualify for this? A lot of people know how to keep score. Like, what is my qualification? And it was like, and I hate doing job interviews and doing resumes and stuff. And so it was like, the website was already out for like a year. And so it was like, hey, this is my website. That's who I am. Like, I don't have to tell you like that I know my stuff, right? Like, and they still give me a little bit of a hard time. Is like, well, this isn't exactly like for, like writers aren't really good for this job. And I was like, I don't know. I can do this job. I can pay attention. I know exactly what's, I've been doing this for, I've been keeping score and playing baseball and all that stuff. So anyways, I got that job. The very next year, and this is crazy that this other job has been around for so long. They open a new position called FTC, which is Field Timing Coordinator. This is 2014, and this was all about, and it was like last minute. This was all about the games are getting too long. They're dragging. What can we do?
This is the root of the pitch clock.
Yes, think about this is like 10 years ago. And it was like, okay, well, somebody threw some ideas together and we're like, okay, well, at least let's get a clock going. The umpires have a clock. They don't enforce anything. So let's go out. Let's at least have somebody showing them. And so at first it was just a card. It was like a different color card. So beginning of the inning, red card or something like that. And then like 30 seconds left. And we were right down on the field, which is like, so right next to the visiting manager, which is cool. So you show up for work and you sit down and like Don Madeleine's right there next to you, like managing the Dodgers. And that was the first year. And nobody knew what the heck we were doing. The umpires would just ignore us. It was like, what are we doing here, man? But it's pretty
yeah,
cool.
Joe West is not looking at your cards, man.
They wanted us, and we do this now, but they at the time they're like, go check in with the umpires before the game. Introduce yourselves, and so the first one, and this was a training, so there was a couple of us. It wasn't me in the front, but knocked on the umpire's door. Joe West opens it, kind of gave us the we know what we're doing. Get out of here. Like, he was such a jerk, but it was a good story because I think he's like that to a lot of people, and he's like, whatever. We know what we're doing. All right. And it was like, okay, I'm never doing that again. And so the next year they actually put the clocks out there, and then we were in the press box, saying just turning the clock on and off, and so easy, such an easy job. And it was like, you're gonna keep paying me to do this, I'll do it. I mean, but are we gonna keep coming back to do it every year? So every year it was like, we're still gonna come back and do this? Like, all right.
Yeah, where's all this information going into?
They were collecting it. They were collecting information on stuff. I don't think they were doing anything with it, but it was all leading up to the pitch clock. but it was, I think they knew a long time ago that it was, man, this is going in the wrong direction. And just working out at the game, being not being a fan, but also just like I'm here working. I want to go home at some point. Man, they would start to drag. Not so much at Petco Park. I mean, those are all games that are like 2-1. Like Jason Marquis would give up like a 3-run homer, but then he would get through like 7 innings on like 64 pitches, and like, all right, but they'd lose 3-1 or something, and it's like, all right, 2 hours and 20-minute game, cool. But you definitely want to go home at some point, and so it was getting to that point. I mean, there was some matchups where it's like there was a Joey Lucchese, Robbie Ray matchup years back. Oh man, that was like on a 5-hour pace after like 3 innings, and so anyway, now we got the pitch clock, so it's a really difficult job now compared.
And are you still managing it?
Yeah. So I got.
So you're the guy. You decide.
Well, one of them. Yeah. There's 2. There will be 3 of us, and then there's like 4 of us stringers. So I'll end up in the press box for like 50 games.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have made my life so much better, Jason, in multiple ways.
It's true.
Like if it was just roster resource like Dianu, it would have been enough, as my people say.
Nice.
But the fact that you were instrumental in the pitch clock, dude.
Like, he's also the guy that speeds up the games.
Yeah, like literally, man. Like I was like, oh man, if I could have someone who's a dual threat, like this is it. This is
like
it.
we're not
This is
outing
my
you.
people.
Like is Manny Machado going to see your face now and just give you daggers?
Oh, dude. I mean, that he was the guy I thought about when he started describing this job, because if we mess up, yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I imagined Max Scherzer looking up at the press box and being like, "What the hell, man?" But Manny gets heated, man, and so there was a game early on, and I don't know if you guys remember. I mean, I'm trying to even think of what happened.
Oh, when he called it at 8, and the umpire didn't give it to him, and he got ejected.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when that happens, I don't know, because I start the clock, and I'm.
Were you on the sticks that game?
I was working. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. And so I see him go crazy, and so when something like that happens, I'm just thinking like, was that me? Like, did I start it too fast? Did I not reset it? And I'm like, oh man. And fortunately, it wasn't, and fortunately, that didn't happen the entire
he
season.
Put the arm
but
up too late.
But like, yeah, that can happen. There was a game. It was against the Royals, and the Royals were doing a bullpen game, and they were supposed to reset the clock once the guy warming up hits the warning track and starts. Because sometimes it takes a long time, and you're supposed to reset it and give him his full 2 minutes or whatever it was, so he gets enough warm-ups. But like bullpen game, like my brain is not wired to like look for I knew the guy was warming up, but usually it's kind of like this pitcher's reaching the end of the line. He's struggling, or he's getting to the pitch count, and he's going to get taken out. So I'm kind of watching for it. But when they bring in a new pitcher in the 3rd inning after the first guy throws 2 scoreless, I'm not really looking. And so they bring in this guy, Mike Myers, and I think he's one of those guys that he's been around a while as a journeyman. He's gonna make a couple outings. He's gonna get DFA'd, and so he gets called in, and I missed the reset. So he's throwing his warm ups. The umpire doesn't realize it either, and so he says one more, and Myers kind of looks at him like, okay, all right. So and then he just whatever I probably shorted him a couple warm ups, and so whatever, okay. And then he loads up the bases like with nobody out. Like he walks 2 guys. He's kind of all over the place. And I'm like, this guy
Did I do that?
It's like, this guy is not, whatever the reason, it could come back to me, But fortunately, this is the Padres. We all watched the Padres in 2023, and you can guess what happened after that.
Bases loaded.
Oh, I remember that series.
Bogarts came up, a pop out occurred.
Nobody scored, and I was just like, yes. All right. I'm not upset about this, but that's the stress of this particular job. So not as easy as before.
Are you going to have a spring training? Like, do you have to go out and do some games to warm up a little bit?
We all did a training in Houston. So Houston, at Minute Maid Park, the owner, Jim Crane, that is his name, Jim Crane. He went to Central Missouri, some Division II school. So he has this. They have this college tournament every year. It's a Division II. They invite 6 schools, and then we bring all our stuff, and so we're able to train a bunch of different positions. And so yeah, just go in there, get our reps, and it's like, oh, okay, I remember how to do this. And a lot of people are going to spring training. I'm good. I got it. I'm not going to spring training.
That's hilarious. Jason, I imagine in your job, there's got to be a certain pleasure when a roster spot is filled for the roster resource and to get these various commodities assigned to their various teams. How surprised have you been at this year where even today, as we tape this the night of February 12th, like almost half of the top 50 free agents have yet to sign?
Put it this way. I usually go every couple of days. I go through transactions at milb.com, so the official minor league page, and those ones, they don't like. I think they get submitted with an official date, and then they get put on that tracker. So you have to go back a week or two to find them. Nobody's reported them, so I'll go back and I go, oh, the Padres signed Zach Rex. I remember him. Used to play for the Dodgers. I think he went overseas, and I'm thinking, I put him on the roster. Like, this is a guy, like, nobody even reported it. And I'm thinking, like, he better than Cal Mitchell? Let me see how he did in the KBO. and like, okay, he sucked in the KBO, actually. He's coming back. He got a minor league deal. No NRI, no non-roster invite. But like the fact that I'm like, just some random guy that I had to go back a week and go, oh, they signed Zach Rex. Yeah, and then I had to, I was thinking about it, and that it's crazy because these are the kind of guys that you put in there, and it happens often, where like there's, you start the off season, and it's a cool thing is that you start from scratch. Sometimes it's like there's nobody to put here. Okay, this is obviously a hole that has to be filled, but last year it was Taylor Callaway was a guy put there, which is funny. It's like, yeah, he's not going to make the roster, but they're gonna build it eventually. But then you got like MLB Network talking about the Padres in December, and like they still haven't filled the spot, and they usually post what I have, and and I think these hosts or whoever, these ex-ball players, they're looking at it and they're like, you can see them just really confused about like, who the heck is that guy? And it's like, okay, there's a little bit of context behind it. They don't have anybody, right? I just had to put the only guy there. And so usually those get filled quickly, they don't, we're not here in February waiting for them to fill that. So the fact that they got Profar is like, okay, I got a 40-man roster guy to put there, but you still got Oscar Mercado and Cal Mitchell I have on the projected bench because they don't have anybody else. I don't really think they're gonna go with one of the young guys. It would be interesting if they did. That's not necessarily how it works. I think if they were to do that, it tells us that, yeah, they see something in Jackson Merrill and they just know that guy's ready. They're going to stick him in left field. I don't. It doesn't really make sense. It's just like there's so many guys out there that, not so many at this point, but there's still a lot of guys out there. So it is surprising that they've waited this long, especially when like, okay, even if maybe they're not going to spend a lot of money, you could have had Aaron Hicks for minimum salary. They didn't do that. But
they're not the only guys waiting this long. The whole half the league's waited forever.
Oh yeah, but this is the one team where you can look at, and I can see this weeks ago. You start looking at the free agents. You start looking at every team, and you go, "Where's the fit?" And it's like musical chairs, but it was like 5 or 6 guys left over, and you go, "Okay, I see what they're doing." They're just like, "Okay, where are you going to sign? Like we can give you a starting job, and hopefully not lowballing these guys, where they're insulted." But I think that could happen. But also, like, dude, come to San Diego. We have a wide open spot for you. And there's still a few guys there. I don't know if it's going to be like Tommy Pham, but whether it's Eddie Rosario, Michael A. Taylor still out there. They need a center fielder. But it is getting, they're running out of guys, but there's still like, okay, there's still a few where it's like, come on, you want to play every day. You can go sign a minor league deal somewhere else. Like, nobody's going to give you a deal at this point.
To quote
So-
Barton Fink, it's not getting late; it's getting early.
yeah. I mean, it's and last year, if you remember, it was a little bit just because Tatis was going to be suspended, and I'm projecting
we got Rugi.
I'm projecting an opening day roster, and so like without Tatis there, I hated it, man. I was like, oh, I should, can I just put a little note and say, okay, Tatis is going to be there in 20 days, but like they signed Matt Carpenter, and I was like, he going to play right field? Like the Yankees stuck him in right field, I guess, right? And then they they were like, yeah, he's versatile. He can play some different positions. And then they didn't play him in the outfield one time in spring training. So yeah, it's crazy. I still expect something to happen, but yeah.
I do have a question that comes up because we've been talking a lot of CBT this year, right? I mean, it's all the rage. You have a different way of calculating the CBT or how a team is than Spot Track, the other kind of salary tracking website. What's the difference? Why does Spot Track have such a low one compared to you guys? Like, I know you include pre-arb players and of course all the lovely Eric Hosmer money that gets sent out in the next 2 years. But why do those numbers end up different?
When I've seen the comparisons, I'm pretty sure I didn't look to see exactly what they're doing, but I'm pretty sure the difference was they are not including the salaries a team has to pay if somebody goes on the IL. So you're basically any day that a player's on the IL, you have to replace them and pay that guy. So if somebody's on the IL, you're paying somebody twice. So just doing an average, just based on, and this is, I probably should do some research and see if I have to change it. But I mean, injuries have gotten, IL trips have gotten more common, more regular. But I think it's still like it's used a lot. And so basically, we account for like seven extra seasons. Which I don't know what that calculates to, like, I don't know, like 1,000 days or something like that. I mean, so it ends up being like there's like $5 million extra. That's just like that accounts for, it's like a normal season of just dudes getting hurt. And so a couple years ago, Padres went way over it. They had like 16, 17 guys on the IL all season. It was crazy. And then there's, the Guardians have been one of the teams that it's always like hardly anybody ever on the IL. There was 2 years in a row where it was like they were the lowest team. So, but for the most part, it kind of falls in that range, like about $5 million extra dollars that you have to. And I'm not sure what the team is projecting, because the team has to go, well, we have to pay these. We have to, every time somebody goes on the IL, we're paying an extra salary. So how much do we account for? Let's put in an extra 3 million, an extra 5, especially if they don't want to go over a certain amount for the CBT.
Eric Katsenda asking how many days can they have a 25-man roster during the season?
Oh man! Oh my goodness! That is yeah. Do we even know what the heck happened there? I mean, because that's, and we're talking, because the Phantom IL is in the news right now.
Oh yeah, Billy Epler.
Is it Billy Epler? And it was like, look, man, it seems like one of those things where everybody kind of knows the deal. Like, it's a long season. These guys are always talking about the grind, and I think a lot of it's mental, but physically, like, yeah, something probably hurts. And like, especially if you're a guy who could be optioned to the minors, hey, how when you're struggling, you're probably going to get optioned, and you get called in, and like, all right, they're going to send me down. But they go, hey, feeling all right? And I'd be like, oh, actually, so with Carpenter, it was like, or like you're, something has to hurt, man. And you kind of know the deal. like, the deal. Bob doesn't want to play you, man. This guy doesn't like you. I don't know what the deal is.
Everything said, I'm feeling great. Best I've ever felt.
Nobody on this team can hit, right? And these guys, they're baseball players. They're stubborn. They think they can, they never think. I think they always think they're gonna be able to play every day. And then whatever. So I got hurt. I'll be back soon. I'll be right back. And it's a mentality, yeah. But also, like, you kind of know, like, I get it. You don't want to be, be released, and so, but also, like, maybe he does want to be released, and he's like, "You're not going to play him." Like, it was kind of a weird thing. And so when Carpenter was finally interviewed about it, I was like, he just sounds like he's not bitter at all. He sounds like he's, and then he didn't sound mad about it. He was just like, yeah, he said all the right things and he was ready to go. And when they needed him, and oh man, it's hard to know. I think the thing that frustrates a lot of baseball fans is not knowing what goes on behind the scenes, like what kind of communication is happening. And everybody wants to point at like this manager did this thing because the front office told them to, and it's like, and we don't know. We don't know what's going on there. But when like this is happening, like AJ is he put this guy on the roster. The manager is like, I'm not playing him. I'm not playing him. He's not hurt. Like, I won't pinch hit him. I don't care how bad everybody else is doing. I am not playing this guy. And there's just like, they're just letting it go on and on. It was the craziest thing, man.
Jason, a couple of questions for you before we let you go. We're always curious because the last 3 years, AJ Preller has seemed to stake out a unique position in terms of general managers in the market by creating these reverse risk contracts where if the player performs well, it's cheap for the Padres and bully for the player. They're gonna regain the flexibility to go back to market very quickly. If things go completely sideways for the player and they get injured or have horrible performance, all of the risk falls on San Diego. The Padres will have to absorb, in some cases, a 4-year commitment to a player as opposed to a 1-year commitment to a player. I don't see other teams making these signings. And I see Preller having done it, obviously, now for like 3 years in a row. What is your feeling on the AJ special, these multiple player opt-out contracts?
Yeah, I mean, it's good for the player. So I think it's obviously one of those selling points. Like, we don't have a lot of money to give you, but look, you pitch good and you get to go and you do well. You're a free agent. You go get paid. And it worked out. I mean, it's risky because if Michael Walker was just terrible, if Seth Lugo was just terrible, yeah, they're gonna stay. And it's like, man, we're stuck with these guys. I don't know. With pitchers, it's just like you can't trust them to be good year to year. Just like they're gonna be good one year, they're gonna be bad the next year. They're gonna get hurt. So I don't know. It almost makes sense sometimes to be like, well, this guy wasn't good this year, so now we got him when he's going to be good. So I think you can look at it a lot of different ways, and I think the way they've approached this with the guys they've signed, it's like we don't really have much left to spend. How are we going to this was the end of last offseason where they already gotten Bogarts, and it's like, hey, we still need pitching. There's some guys out there, and it's like, how are we going to get a couple guys here? And that Waka contract was crazy. It was like 4 years, 24 million or something. It would have been okay as long as he wasn't terrible. But for him to not opt out, I don't know what it would have taken. It was like 4 years, 24 million. I mean, it would have had to be pretty bad. And then Lugo was like, I think we got best case there. And so I think you look at what AJ does and you go, man, he's really good at assembling this team, the pitching and a lot of these guys that he's brought in to assemble this team. A lot of it's been so good. We won the Joe Musgrove trade, we won the Yu Darvish trade, we won the Blake Snell trade. I mean, there's been so much good there, and I think that 2020 season, I think was. You guys see me? Hear me?
Oh,
we lost you for a second.
Okay,
you're back. Yeah, we got you.
Sometimes that happens, and we just kind of hold in because you might have said something brilliant that the machine's going to pick up.
Oh man!
And we'll listen to it later.
I went on a whole rant while I was frozen there, or I was about to go on the rant, and it was like, no, stop! I see where. Okay. Anyways, I mean that 2020 season was so important, but also I think it kind of messed with everybody in that. If you think about the history of Petco Park, like every Padres team has been like at some point, whoever's writing about the Padres, they call them the punchless Padres. This team is struggling. This offense is really bad, and if you go back to the history and you go, man, we had some guys that put up some numbers. Adrian Gonzalez had like 5 great years. Mark Loretta, Giles, look, even like Klesko and Nevin's years were good, even though they complained all the time. It was like you have a lot of guys that have had good years, but every year at Petco Park, it's just like the team goes into this funk where it's just like this team just is struggling, right? And look, I think I'm not a scientist, I'm not a psychologist, but I do think just knowing that how much these guys talk about that grind, that mental grind. And now you gotta play in this ballpark where you got this marine layer that just not just that it suppresses home runs. It's like you hit the ball in the gaps and the things just seems to just hang there. It's like,
But the marine layer is only on military Sundays.
Oh, I didn't know that, man.
Yeah,
told
it's
you I'm
only
not-
they only sit in right field on the Sundays. That's when the marine layer is there.
There you go. And go for it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, Jason. I was just gonna ask because you've mentioned that you didn't really get the chance to talk about the Padres a lot when you're talking to media stuff. Normally, it's just talking about roster resource stuff, which I don't even think we've, by the way, like really gone into like what roster resource is for everyone. I think it just shows us like where everything is.
Go
like,
look with your eyes.
Yeah, it's on Fangraphs. Just go to Fangraphs. Just Google Fangraphs roster resource. It's like literally every tool that you could imagine. You want to see what people are getting paid. You want to see injuries. You want to see probable grids. Like you want to see like offseason free agent trackers. Like it's all there. Like it is. I do another show called Pods Above Replacement on this network, and we use your stuff constantly. So thank you for that. And my last question I just wanted to have was, you're normally talking about all 30 MLB teams. Like the three of us are really ensconced in Padres lands. Like we're baseball fans, but we only have the microscope on the Padres. Like you have the microscope on all 30 teams. And I was just wondering like if that has given you any perspective or any insights on like what the Padres do uniquely or differently compared to like any other team. Like what's something you notice about San Diego that is different from, other teams? Yeah,
I mean, not to like, and if you talk to my friends or just coworkers that I talk about the Padres with, I know they think I get stuck on this subject, but it is Petco Park is just it's a beast, man. Like I was saying, it's like to try to get through 162 games. There's a reason that there's so many of these Padre teams just kind of fall apart at the end of the season. There's been a bunch of different managers, bunch of different teams. And so like that, like I said, that 2020 season was only 60 games. It wasn't April and May. Those are the worst months for Marine Layer. There was no fans, so there's no pressure. You think about like every player that they acquire in the middle of the season who's having a good season, and you go, well, let's get this guy because our offense needs help. Ryan Ludwig and Joe Randa and anybody you could think of that's just like Adam Frazier. And it's just like, man, what happened? You were having such a good season. And so I don't think people talk about Petco Park in that way where it's like, this is just really difficult, man. And I think it's really hard for players to explain how it messes with them. It's like there's so many ups and downs, right? And it's like things tend to balance out, but Petco Park, it doesn't really balance out, I don't think. And it totally messes with you if you're a pitcher. And not saying this is why Blake Snell pitches the way he pitches, but like you don't want to make a mistake. Give up a home run in the first inning, you're like, oh, it's over. Blake Snell is a totally different subject, but like that's kind of what I think of when I see him pitch, and is like he doesn't want to give up anything because he doesn't trust his team to score any runs. And it doesn't always start that way, but I think it does get to that point eventually where it's like, okay, well, this is a good part for pitchers, but also like sucks because I'm trying to win the game, and I don't want to make a mistake. I can't go out there loose and just like feel comfortable going after these guys. So not like I said, not that that's exactly what's happening with Blake Snell, but that's kind of partly what I think of with other pitchers who don't want to make a mistake because game's over. And we saw this was like a really extreme example in 2023, where it's like that team is so good. There's so much hyped, so much pressure, and it still doesn't work out. And it's like, what? How is this happening? How is this happening? And it has to be something. Let's stop making excuses, because like I've seen this before. I've been seeing this for 20 years. It's just because this is a great team. Like, it seems the same to me. Like, it's a different manager, different team, different GM, but this is a great team, and it's still like, man, what is wrong here? So
Well, our old co-host John Gennaro is doing fist pumps listening to this, because last year that's literally what he said.
oh, you guys have talked about this?
Not our old co-host John Gennaro.
Yeah,
Like,
he
was
jumped
that
in.
the year
He just
before?
like hijacked this one summer episode and was just like, "It's all Petco. It's all Petco. What are you guys worried about? It's all
It
Petco."
sounds like an excuse, because people do want to say like, and people are like, man, that's actually kind of sad if that's what's happening, because how do we even fix this? Like, I don't know, like move the stadium to just move it east, move it east, right? Like,
I've got a crazy
Hydraulic
idea.
lift,
We
just
put the
lift
stadium
it
in
up.
Mission Valley.
oh man, dude,
We get an actual layer of United States Marines, and they stand on each other's
Ah!
shoulders in
Get a
the
block-
in
Go
Gallagher
away, Marine.
Square.
Block opposing homers. Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get that-
with a big
yeah.
salute.
I want
Knock it
to
out.
ask one more thing before we go. As you've given us the reason to be doomed for all time, because the ballpark isn't going anywhere. They're going to name
Yeah.
a street after Peter Seidler. Where's your silver lining looking at the organization? Like, is it in 2026 when Jackson Merrill and Ethan Salas are all regulars, and the team's young pitching that's in Double-A right now is matured and has a year of MLB under their belt? Or, is it beyond that, or is it in the now while Manny Machado's in his prime and Xander Bogaerts are more in their prime?
I'll give a little bit of an unpopular answer, because I know, like I said, people, they want to point fingers and they're mad about something. I mean, AJ Preller, when they hired him, it was like, this is the dude that we need, that's going to build that farm system. He seems like he's going to be so good at that. And then for whatever reason, he just went in the whole totally different direction. I thought like ownership was kind of like, hey, let's do something. Let's go for it. And AJ was probably like, well, I didn't draft any of these guys. I'll trade them all away anyways. And then they lost, and then he started over. He built one of the best farm systems in baseball, and we got to this point, and then it was like, yeah, he's good at doing this, right? It doesn't matter how many people he trades away. It's like he continues to build this farm system. So now that I think like they're more focused on, okay, that wasn't sustainable. That payroll, top 3 payroll, is not sustainable. Maybe, I'm hoping that they're going to be top 12, top 15, and then just really focus on building that farm and really focusing on developing players. It's already turned around quickly, and you can look at 4 or 5 pitchers that are going to be coming up together, and you go, okay, a couple of these guys are going to hit. Hopefully somebody has a better idea of like what kind of hitters are going to succeed here. And so you got the Merrill and Pauly and Marcy, who they're different. They're different left-handed hitters who aren't power guys. And he said it's not necessarily that you can't hit homers. It's like you hit these line drives in the gap and they hang up. But I don't know. I think we saw Hassan Kim have some success with what he was doing last year. He doesn't hit the ball extremely hard. He just kind of had a knack for just sticking the bat out on low pitches and boop, little line drives.
It is
here and there.
interesting that their first big free agent acquisition was a left-handed hitter known for not getting launch and just kind of making good contact. Not that he did that here, but that was the idea.
And so that's the thing is like, that was Yonder Alonso back in the day. It's like, well, this guy hits line drives and he was okay. Seth Smith is the one guy who they thought like, this guy's perfect. He doesn't hit a lot of home runs. And if you look at what Seth Smith did in like 2014, he was really good. But I don't know. I just think Petco Park messes with people's heads. So I think it's hard to know. But I think to be able to balance Manny, Tatis, Bogaerts with those younger left-handed hitters who are just line drive. And look, you got one already who decided he wasn't going to do that anymore. Cronenworth decided he was now a first baseman who hits home runs. And look, it's not the same baseball they were using between mid 2018 and 2021. So bad habits. We talk about 2020. That's part of it, but also like you get those habits because all of a sudden you're not that contact hitter who can maybe hit 10 to 12 homers. You're like, oh, I can hit it out now. I'm a 20 homer guy. Now I'm a first baseman. Now I got paid. So, hopefully, with Xander too, I'm like, you can't put them both in the number 2 spot, but I still think of lineups that way. I go, oh, if you're the number 2 hitter, then your job is different than being the 4 or 5 hitter. And like, maybe you're focused more on just making contact. And so yeah, that's kind of where my head is as far as the future. So I'm always positive about Padres. I was positive about the post, 90, the 94, the fire sale Padres. I remember being, I don't know, it didn't last very long, but I remember going like, Arkeson Frocco hit one in the upper deck, man. Like, he's going to be our third baseman. Dave Statton hit like 30 homers in AAA, man. Like, he's going to be good, right? And it lasted a couple weeks, but I still kind of have that in me. And I see Padres
for real.
I see Padres Twitter kind of going up and down on this stuff too. They're like, one day they're excited about all the young guys, and then they're mad because I've been there, and I think I still got a little bit of that in me. But I'm always pretty optimistic going into the season.
Well, Jason, we've learned a lot over the course of this interview, not only in terms of your gigs, but your thoughts as well. Let everybody know where they can follow you and where they can track what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, so Matt Fangraphs, there's a drop down that's actually called Roster Resource. So go to Roster Resource. You can just click on a team, and it's a lot of information, but it's something that you can kind of look at. It's a projection of an opening day roster. You can go all the way down through the minors, and you can see how many, if you care about this stuff, how many options a player has left, when they're available, when they're eligible for a Rule 5 draft, service time, how they were acquired. That's like my favorite thing is where did this guy come from? And so you can see all that stuff on Roster Resource, and then I build all this other stuff that, free agent trackers and things like that. Follow me on Twitter at Jason R. Martinez, and then I think I'm at Roster Resource on the other sites. If you prefer those, always if you have any questions, there is a method to my madness, and that's a Padres reference there for way back in the day. The method to my madness. So if you have any questions about any of my projections or anything, I will give you an answer. It doesn't mean it's right, and there's always a lot of different good opinions. There's bad opinions, but there's several good ones, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking at a certain, regarding a certain projection. Why do I have this guy batting here? It is just so much context that goes into this stuff here.
And the 2 R's stand for
Roster Resource. My middle name is actually Richard, but so I threw in the extra R. There's some famous guys out there who do it as well. I'm not sure what George R. Martin or
yeah.
What's the
George Roster Resource Martin?
J.R.R. Tolkien is the Hobbit guy, right?
Tolkien, yeah.
Roster Resource Tolkien.
You got to start writing about elves and shit next.
I wanted to change it in real life too. I'm like, this is cool, man. I'm gonna start signing my. I'm gonna change it at the bank and like whenever and they're too confusing.
I thought you were going to be like Raul Rojas.
My name is it's Ricky Ricardo. Jason Ricky Ricardo Martinez.
Oh my God. Jason, incredible stuff. Thank you so much for being on Padres Hot Tub tonight.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. It's been a blast. I love talking Padres and appreciate the time.
For Chris Reed, for Rafi Cantor, for Jason R. Martinez, I'm Craig Elston. Thanks so much. Please continue to support us. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. We'll be back next week. And until then, go Padres.